Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Sophie. I'm a member of our education team here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And if you are watching along live with us, it is 10 a.m. Today is the 8th, Tuesday, April 8th, and we are more than happy to have you participating along with us. In fact, we actually welcome and invite it. I'm going to be asking for lots of observations today. If you have any questions, anything you would like to ask, you are more than welcome to text us in live at 562-286-1838, or you can email questions at live@lbaop.org. That's kind of like if you're watching after the fact. But if you are watching right now, we would love to have you interacting with us. I'm not alone here in my studio. I am joined by my two friends, Sonia and Jeanette, and so they will be answering and controlling all the fun stuff you see going on behind me. So, the first thing I want us to do is we will be using our scientist brains today. So I would like us to start by warming up those brains by making some observations. So I'm going to go ahead and step off screen and give you all a second to start making some observations. Now, observations are just a very fancy word for talking about things that we can sense. So right now, one of the senses we may be using is our sense of sight. So please go ahead and make some observations about some of the things you see in here. Now, the exhibit that we are looking at is powered through or I guess we are looking at a live webcam of an exhibit. And this is a really big exhibit that we have here at our aquarium. This is called our Blue Cavern exhibit. So, for those of you that have been in person before, it's the really big one you see when you first walk in. But you and me, even though we are in different places, we are looking at the same view because this is a live webcam. So if I were to walk outside right now, I'd be able to see the same exact stuff. Okay, so some things you may be able to make observations about are maybe some different types of fish you see in there. Maybe if you're seeing like edges of fins, seeing any like big colors from some of our different fish. Some of the things we have like right in front of us too are some really big rocks too. Even though they are a not living or they're like not alive part of the environment, they are still super important. Now, something else that we also see in this habitat that like really helps us kind of characterize it or really helps us tell us what this area is all these really long stringy green things you see right there. Do you notice those? Do you see how especially like up towards the top and especially over here you can see them kind of floating and swaying back and forth? Now, what we are looking at right here is a very, very important part of this home for the animals we see right here. That is called kelp. Now, kelp is what creates this really nice kelp forest we see right here, and it is home to a whole bunch of different types of animals. You get a whole bunch of animals, like all these different types of fish you see, all sorts of different species. You can get a lot of those boneless animals, the invertebrates. We get things like sharks, things like rays, and we also get a lot of mammals in this habitat too. And that's actually what we'll be talking about today. We will be talking about a very, very cool type of mammal that used to live, well, they still live in kelp forests. They used to be a lot more abundant in them, which means we used to have a lot of these animals in our kelp forests. Now, let me go ahead and move over to the side of the screen and grab my little, well, I guess very big friend that we'll be talking about today. We are going to spend our time today talking about our sea otters. Does anyone out there really like sea otters? I know here at the aquarium, when people come to visit the animals, people are super, super excited to see our sea otters. And there's always asking about where these animals are. So let's go ahead and make some more observations about either the otter I'm holding right here or the one you see that way in the picture. What are some things that you notice about it? What are some things that are maybe different than some of the other fish we just saw in here as they were moving around? Well, something that I notice about the otters, and I know something that people often share with us too, is that they look very, 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 very cute and oftentimes very fluffy and very fuzzy. A lot of times people say they would love to just hold an otter or squeeze one or definitely take one home. And that's always funny to us because the people that work with the otters know them as being kind of feisty, kind of rambunctious. They are definitely troublemakers, but they are cute nonetheless. Now, that fur that they have on them is very important, and I will definitely get into it later as well. But before we do that, before we're talking about what makes otters special, I kind of want to talk about what type of animal these otters are. So, what type of animals are they? I can give you some hints. They are related to seals and sea lions. They're also related to whales and dolphins. They're also related to animals like us as well as humans. We have something in common with all of those animals that I just listed. So, what are some things that we think are the same about us and those ones? Well, one of the big things is that we are mammals. So, does anyone know what it means to be a mammal or maybe different characteristics about being a mammal, different parts of it? Hmm. We did mention one of them already. Let me grab my otter again so I can showcase this. But we did discuss one of the really awesome adaptations or special features on the otter already, having all this nice hair or fur on them. Now, having fur is definitely a characteristic or part of being a mammal. If you go ahead and feel your head or your arms or even your legs, you will notice that you do have different amounts of hair on there. And that's because we as humans also have all those characteristics of being a mammal. So just like how the otters have all sorts of fur, we as humans also have hair all over us. Now, one of the things that's really cool is that here in this picture, you may notice that our otter is on land. So here at the aquarium, we do have animals that live their entire lives in the ocean. And we also have animals that maybe split their time up between ocean and land or rocky areas. The otter is one of those ones too. So otters, they do dive down to go look for food, but some of the things they also do are they float on the surface a lot. Now, they are also just like us as humans. Think about when you are going swimming. What are some things or maybe challenges that you might encounter when you're going swimming, especially when you're trying to swim deep down? Well, I know for me, one of the things that I have a challenge with is holding my breath for a super long amount of time. I don't work on it too much. I'm also not like a really special mammal that can hold my breath for a very long period of time. So, something else that's also true about all mammals is that they need to breathe air. And luckily for our otters, we'll be able to look more at it later, but they have a very cool behavior that helps them just kind of float on the surface and get some air. Now, something else that we may not be able to notice on the outside of the otter, but definitely helps them on the inside, is that mammals are also warm blooded. So, what that means is that our bodies on the inside are always trying to keep us nice and warm. Think about what happens when you're like outside exercising and it's super hot. What does your body do? You may start to sweat, you may start to feel a little warmer, you may start to get kind of like visibly red. Those are all ways of our bodies trying to keep us at a very nice internal temperature, that nice warm bloodedness that we have. Now, if you think about it on the opposite end, sometimes when you're really cold and you may not be able to put another jacket on, you may shiver. And that's your body's way of trying to keep you nice and warm. Again, that warm bloodedness. And so, with the otters, having that fur helps them out. But we'll talk about it a little more later, too. So we have 3 out of the 5 things that are true about being a mammal. Now, something else that we are able to talk about here at the aquarium, and I'll be able to talk about a little later too, is that these animals give live birth. Just like us humans, we did not hatch from an egg. We didn't have a hatching day. Our parents didn't like sit on us in our egg when we were younger. Instead, we were born live and we were crying and screaming and all of that stuff. Similar with us as humans, otters and other mammals are born live too. So that means they have no hatching days. Now, when our otters are first born and they are little, they can't really start eating the food they like to eat right away. Just like how us as humans, we didn't start eating solid foods for a while when we were first born. One of the last characteristics about being a mammal is that they all drink milk or eat milk in some ways because especially with really big whales, their milk can be super thick like pudding. So for us, being able to provide milk for our young is a really important part for being a mammal. And so we'll be able to talk about just how our otters play a role in helping their little babies as well. So like I mentioned, otters are a very special type of mammal, and there's a lot of things that are very special about them as an animal. One of the thing I want to take a look at first is I want to go over to one of our videos of our otter's teeth. I think we have a really cool video looking at our otter's teeth that we'll be able to take a look at. Now, sometimes when we're talking about otters here at the aquarium, one of the things we like to talk about is otters have very kind of sharp looking teeth. That's something that you may not notice until you either come to an aquarium or things that you may either see in like a video or something like this. But we always show people that their teeth are little things that you may not kind of really want to mess with. And we'll be able to see why, but we'll also be able to talk about what makes them so important too. Awesome. Okay, so there we see one of our there's its teeth. There it's opening up. Now something else you can kind of see too is the size of the otter. You can see the whiskers on it very well, and we also get a good look at that mouth. But something else you may be very curious about is to like whose hand is this? Who's getting that close to one of our otters right there? Well, this video was taken here at our aquarium, and with the otters that we have here in house, some of the things that we do, we're able to train behaviors just like this. So we can train behaviors to get them to come close to us, maybe to open their mouths. And that helps us because it ensures that we can take a look at their teeth daily, if not multiple times a day, to make sure that they are strong and healthy. Now, the reason these animals need really strong and healthy teeth is because of the stuff that they like to eat. But before we get into that, I'm going to go over to my document camera so we can get a closer look at our otter teeth. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so here we are able to see one of our otter skulls. Let me go ahead and zoom out just a tiny bit. It's not the biggest. Otters sometimes can be sort of different sizes, but most of them don't get like too big. So we can see here that it has a kind of small-ish head, but something else that is not small about it at all is these teeth that it has. We as humans also have some kind of canines like this too, but ours do not definitely stick out as much. Now, something else that I think is very interesting is if we take a look right here, these teeth, especially these back ones, look really similar to the molars that we as humans have. So if you think a little bit about what your different teeth help you with or what your different like food utensils help you with, that can help us think about how otters use their too. So when we think about like cutting into stuff, usually we want something maybe like sharp and pointy or maybe a little serrated. And they don't really have anything that's super serrated, but these ones definitely can help like puncture or poke into things. Now, molars are really helpful, especially for maybe getting into things that are nice and hard, things that are maybe crunchy, things that you maybe need to grind down on. So, having not only like these really big molars, but those big kind of pokey ones too, will definitely help these animals eat things that can be super hard and maybe have a lot of shells on them. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the animals that lives in a kelp forest is our otter friends. Now, like I said, they're not super abundant in kelp forests, but they are a type of animal. Oh, no, that's such a good little picture. Thank you. They are an animal that used to live a lot more often in kelp forests. Now, there are all sorts of different animals that live in a kelp forest. Like I said, there are sharks, there are other mammals like seals and sea lions. We got all sorts of different types of fish. But we also have a whole lot of animals that are kind of boneless or don't have any of those backbones in them. And we call those types of animals invertebrates. Oh my goodness, you were reading my mind. This is exactly where I was going next. So, like I said, there's a lot of these boneless animals that live in a kelp forest. And if you are a boneless animal, you may not be able to move super quickly. You may not have anything like hard inside of your body to help protect yourself. So you may want to grow things on the outside of your body in order to better protect yourself. And that is exactly the case that we see with our sea urchin friend right here. What are some things you notice about the sea urchin? Do you think, and this is something that I ask my classes often too, do you think that this is an animal that like you could just pick up right now and start eating? Like pick up a sea urchin right away? Maybe not, and that's because you may be noticing those spikes all along the outside of it. Now, something else you may not be able to see in here, but sea urchins have really sticky little suction cup feet that they can use to grab onto things, especially like the kelp they like to eat. Some of you may have noticed this nice big kind of thing of seaweed or kelp that the urchin is sitting on. Now, urchins are an animal that are super, super tough to eat because of all those protective spines on them. But remember earlier when we were looking at the otter skull, and I was saying they have teeth that they can definitely use to maybe crunch or grind things up with? Otters and sea urchins are a perfect pair for each other. One of the favorite foods of our sea otters is the sea urchin right over here. Now, because not many animals can eat sea urchins, that makes otters a very important animal. Hold on, give me just a moment. I think I'm going to sneeze. Oh, okay. It was a false alarm. However, like I was saying, one of the foods that our sea otters really like to eat are the sea urchins. And let me grab something else too to look at other things they may like to eat. So they like to eat sea urchins. They may also like to eat anything that has hard shells on it. And so getting and crushing into open hard shells will be very tough to do as well. Now, take a look at what you see right here. Our otter's doing some things that are kind of cool. You can notice it eating something, but you also notice it kind of just resting and floating on its back. Now, that kind of behavior that you see right there, I believe it is called rafting, and it's just, or I think it's just floating on their back. And it's a really awesome behavior because, like I mentioned, these otters need to breathe air in order to survive, but also they need to be able to kind of like make themselves a nice little area for them to eat. So, laying on their back gives them an opportunity to not only be breathing since their head is in air, but also giving them a nice little place for them to crack and open up some of those hard shelled items that they may like to eat. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, how on earth are otters able to crack stuff open? Well, there's a couple of things that help them out. One of the ways that they are able to carry all the different food up to the surface that they like to eat is that otters have little armpit pockets, loose flaps of skin where they are able to kind of store stuff. Now, I think we also may have a video of one of our otters here at the aquarium, maybe grabbing things from its little, maybe grabbing things off of the beach and putting things in its little pockets too. So they will use that to store different things that they may want to eat when they get back up to the surface. But something else that they also do is they will store different types of rocks and tools in there. So they will use a rock or a shell. Let me go grab my shell, kind of like a hammer. And so they will use that to then break off either the urchin spines or break into something that has a hard shell like this in order for them to eat. So having those loose flaps of skin underneath means they can store stuff under there, which is super cool. Now, another awesome adaptation they have. Oh, perfect. We can see them moving around right now, and I think we can also see them using their really dexterous or grippy little paws that they have. Not only do they have those armpit flaps underneath them, but they also have a lot of dexterity, which means they are really good at gripping things. We have x-rays here that we are able to use in some of our classrooms, and the x-rays came from our animal hospital here at the aquarium. But one of the things I noticed kind of for the first time the other day is I was looking at an otter's x-ray of its paw, and a lot of the students I had in my class, and also myself as well, really noticed that it looked a lot like a human hand. When we were looking at the skeleton of it, oh, perfect. Or when we were looking at that x ray, it looked a lot like a human hand, kind of like minus the thumb. The thumb was a lot longer. And so we know we as humans have really good grip. But something else that's really special about, if you think about like your cat, your dog, other animals like this, is on their little paws, they have really good little pads and really good grip too. So the otters, even though they look super cute in this picture, they are definitely a really fierce animal, and they do a really important job of eating and keeping different populations in check in a kelp forest. So right here we see it eating, I'm pretty sure this is a piece of clam, and is using its little paws to bring it closer to its mouth. But just imagine they have all this loose stuff stored in here, and then they just grab it out and they start eating it. That's what happens here at the aquarium. And then we often give our animals really hard shelled items as a form of enrichment or something to help keep them nice and stimulated, their brains. And usually we have to be really careful because if they store any of those things in their pockets and then bring it out to their exhibit, like the front of their exhibit, they can get really funny and start like smashing their stuff up against the glass. They can start scratching it. And we can always hear a loud kind of like clicking noise throughout that gallery because it'll be one of our little otters banging one of its toys or one of its tools up against the glass, which is definitely funny as well. Now, something else that I want to talk about with our otters is I want to spend a little bit of time talking about their fur. Now, if we go back over to my document camera, we will be able to see a sample of fur that we have right here. Oh, perfect. Now, I can go ahead and describe the fur as best as I can. It is super, super soft. There's a lot of hair on it. But something you may notice as I'm kind of like running my fingers through it is it seems to not really end. Even as I keep going, I'm not able to get to the surface that's underneath it. And that's because otters have incredibly thick fur. We have some mounted right here on a piece of, I think, like an old clipboard, so it's more durable. But you can see just how much this fur is kind of sticking up in terms of fluff. Otters have incredibly dense fur, and that's something that's special about being a mammal, but also it's going to help keep them warm in some of the really cold areas that they live in. Now, here at the aquarium, sometimes what we do is we put our otters or we give them different ice for them to play on. I think we may have a picture of an otter either like on ice or maybe one of our otters near the water. So, if you've been in our oceans locally in California, you may know that it's kind of a little chilly. We have water up in Alaska. Oh, perfect. We have water up in Alaska that pushes the cold water down the coast. So that's why here in California, it is always kind of chilly. Now, we used to have otters in Southern California. Not anymore. They're mostly in Northern California. But you can imagine if the water in Southern California is cold, well, further up north, it's probably going to be even colder. So, otters, you can see here, we see them like playing in the ice. They are not strangers to the cold climate, whether it be cold water or playing in ice like you see right here. But our otters have that really nice dense fur on their body to help keep them warm because one of the things that they don't have, even though they're a mammal, is they don't have that nice fatty layer of blubber to help keep them nice and warm. Instead, they rely totally on their fur. Now, something else you may see them doing right here is you may see them eating or looking for food. Something that's really special about otters is they will use their fur in a partnership with eating a lot of food to help keep them warm. So, what they do is they are eating food all the time. They are constantly burning through those calories and using that as energy. So, that's going to help keep them nice and warm when they're going through physical activity. So, using that and also having that really nice fur on the outside means they're able to warm up their bodies and always keep themselves warm. So, eating a lot and burning those calories will help warm them up inside. And then having that fur on the outside will help keep that fur inside their body and keep them nice and warm. So that's why we see our otters eating a lot. Oftentimes, that's maybe why they go for animals that have a shell on them, because sometimes those shelled animals or things like urchins may not move too often. And so that means it's super easy for an otter to swim down and grab some of that food that it likes to eat, especially since it's slow moving. Now, something that's really cool about otters is that they will eat about 25%, about a quarter of their entire body weight. So if you think about like a 100-pound human eating the way a sea otter would eat, they would be eating 25 pounds of food. Oh, there goes my microphone. They would be eating 25 pounds of food every single day just in order to keep themselves nice and warm, just like how the otters do. So, here at the aquarium, we feed these animals quite often, but something else that we also do is we help rescue and rehabilitate any little sea otter pups that might have been orphaned or abandoned up and down our coast. So you say, oh my goodness, that sounds crazy. How do I get a job like that taking care of baby sea otters? Well, the thing that's kind of, well, not unfortunate, because we're glad that the mother otters can do this. But the thing that may be a little surprising is that we as humans try to stay out of it as much as possible. We are a part of a sea otter surrogacy program. So, what that means is we will partner a mama otter with a baby otter, so that the mama otter can then teach them everything they need to know about how to be an otter. The thing that it also helps us out with is that when we go and put that otter back out into the ocean, they're going to be kind of not used to humans. We don't really want them associating humans with food. We don't want them going up to humans or going to them on their kayaks. We want to make sure that they have a kind of healthy fear of humans so that they don't go looking for them for food. So by pairing, oh my goodness, by pairing a mama otter with a baby otter, we can then ensure that the otter learns everything it needs to learn, like how to groom itself, how to find food, and basically just how to be a successful otter. What's really cool right here is that if you take a look at our baby otter, you'll notice that it may look a little fluffier than some of the other otters that we just took a look at. That's because when they're first born, they are super, super, super fluffy. They may not know how to be grooming themselves quite yet. And they also may not know how to like fluff up their fur. What that means is they usually have a lot of air bubbles in their fur, so that makes them really easy to float or really buoyant. So they have a tough time swimming down to the bottom of the ocean and staying down there. And so they need to stay down there for a little bit of time to look for food. So when baby otters are first born, they cannot even look and hunt for food on their own. What the mama will do is the mama will kind of wrap them up in kelp at the surface so they don't really float away, and they'll leave them there while the mama goes and looks for food. So they will hang out with each other for a period of time after they are born until the otter is ready to be a successful one. So here at the aquarium, we have otters that stay on. We have otters that like stay here at the aquarium, and those ones were deemed non-releasable for a number of reasons. They might not have been successful on their own. Maybe they had some medical things that would not have been like successful for a life out in their natural habitat. And then we also have the otters that are releasable. So we will use the otters that we have here in. Well, we will use the otters that we have here to raise some of those ones that are going to be releasable. We have a couple of different mother otters here who have done the surrogacy multiple times. There are some that like it more than others. There are some that are a little bit more patient with the little babies than others. But we have a couple of otters and the mothers specifically that help us raise some of these little ones so that they can go back out into their natural habitat and know just exactly what they are doing. Now, the reason why this is important and the reason why this has happened and why we're taking so much care of the otters is because of that food that they like to eat. Their food and their fur play a big role in kind of where they are now. So, sea otters, like I said, are one of the few animals that are able to successfully eat sea urchins. And if we think back to what we learned at the beginning, what are some things that urchins like to eat? They like to eat kelp. That's the very foundation of that kelp forest. Yeah, all that big, yummy green stuff right there. Now, kelp forests help out animals in all sorts of ways, but they also help us out as humans. They give us a lot of oxygen. Kelp itself produces oxygen for us to breathe. It gives us a lot of different seafood options, and we see things like that in terms of economic benefits. We see things like that in the food we're eating. We can also see that in things like tourism, whether it be diving or visiting around the areas where you see kelp. But kelp forests are ultimately important for the animals that call them home. Now, because the otters have such beautiful fur to them, remember we said it was super thick. Not only did otters and other animals kind of realize that, but we as humans took notice of that too. So, unfortunately, what we as humans did is we ended up hunting a lot of these animals for their fur. So, otters now, luckily, are protected under the Endangered Species Act and also the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And so we started protecting these animals after we were buying, selling, and trading a lot of their fur. So when we were doing that as humans, we saw a really sharp kind of drop in the number of otters that we had. Now, whenever we have a sharp drop of an animal, we may see a big increase or a big going up of the animals that they like to eat. And in this case, that was the sea urchin. Because not many animals can eat the sea urchins, all the sea urchins were doing were swimming, or, well, not swimming, walking around all over the ocean floor, all over those kelp forests, and eating all the kelp in sight. And there wasn't really anyone to be there to help eat them. So that's why the otters experienced a really kind of like significant drop in the number of otters they had. And that's also why we saw so many sea urchins go up and the decline of our kelp forests. And so we as humans recognize that, like, hey, we need to be better protecting these animals because we need to make sure that kelp forests look really healthy and vibrant, just like this, with all of the kelp flowing everywhere. So that way, all of those hundreds of animals that call it home can have a really nice, healthy kelp forest to go home to. So, with our otters, they are a very special animal because of the role they play in eating those urchins, and they're an also animal that we at the aquarium do a lot to help. Now, not only does our aquarium help out these animals, but it's actually a really big partnership through several other aquariums. Right now, we are partnered with Monterey Bay Aquarium, and I believe other aquariums on the West Coast are going to be expanding their ability to take care of sea otters too. So whenever you see any here at the aquarium, those are ones that will stay either at a zoo or an aquarium, but those are ones that might have helped play a role in raising some of those younger ones. Now, those younger ones are out somewhere in their natural habitat. They get tracked for a period of time, but all we can hope is that they know what they are doing as otters and that those mamas had a really big impact on them. So that kind of takes us full circle on otters as an animal, what's kind of going on with them, and what we at the aquarium are doing to better help them. So if there are any more last minute questions, you are more than welcome to let us know. But if you are watching after the fact and would love to get more information about our otters or the surrogacy program, feel free to email us at live@lbaop.org. And also, you can visit our website or you can visit Monterey Bay Aquarium's website to learn more information about the sea otter surrogacy programs at either one of those. So once again, thank you for tuning in with us. If you have any more questions, you can let us know at those extensions down below. But if not, thank you for joining, and we will see you next time. Thank you.